Howdy, guys. Welcome to night 47 of Big Brother All-Stars, and this is Cliff Notes from outside the Big Brother house. Hope y'all had a fantastic weekend, a good Monday morning to y'all. Just a little bit of a refresher of what's been going on inside the Big Brother house this weekend. We had the veto competition on Saturday. It was won by Tyler. Kevin and Davon are on the block. Memphis is the HOH. A veto ceremony will be held sometime today, I would expect. It should be. And we will see whether Tyler uses a veto or not. If he does, then suddenly Memphis has to put someone else up. The theme of overnight, a lot of conversations about trying to convince Tyler to use a veto. Should he or shouldn't he? A lot of people talking about who they're going to vote for or against in the eviction ceremony on Thursday. Preparations as we get into the second half of this season. So a lot of interesting things tonight. Let's get right into it. All right, first of all, in the comic room, Kevin and Davon are talking. Kevin is saying, look, I want to tell Tyler and Memphis that if they pull one of us off the block and put up someone that's not us and everything, we will be jury vote grateful to both of those guys if they will do it. And when I first heard that, I said, okay, yeah, it's a strategy, but do people really buy into it? But then I realized that Kevin is remembering that both Tyler and Memphis were in Final Twos on their seasons, and they both lost because they didn't have the jury vote. So suddenly it makes a lot more sense. And thumbs up to Kevin for remembering it. Those two guys may be a little more focused on jury management than some of the other people. So it could make some sense to try to say, I don't know that it's going to work, but it's good thinking on Kevin's part to at least be thinking about that. All right, so Davon is talking about trying to get Tyler to use the veto. She says, look, if we're going to get him to use the veto, we're going to have to throw David under the bus. And Kevin says, if we have to, we have to. This is something that seems like Davon's been practicing already for the last couple of days, so she ought to be good at it by now, right? She's been throwing him under the bus a little bit already. But anyway, so they're thinking they're going to have to really get aggressive. They're going to have to come up with a lie that really makes David look horrible in the eyes of Tyler, Memphis, everyone else, so that there's a bigger target than the two of them in that house. They start trying to come up with a lie that they can make happen. But before they do that, they start talking about how are we going to present this? And Kevin says, look, Davon, you're going to have to be the one to go talk to Memphis or Tyler, whoever, about this, because I did something very similar in season 11. It made the HOH really upset with two people. It worked, but everyone knows that I did that, so they're not going to trust me if I do something similar now. It's going to have to be you. And Davon is saying, no, I think you'd be much better initiating it. It would make more sense for you to do it, Kevin. You do it. Neither one of them wants to be the one actually present this story, this lie to anyone else, because if it blows up in their face, they don't want to be the ones there with the damage. So they're kind of both wanting the other one to go do it. So they move into the key room. They start plotting this lie. Well, how are they going to throw David under the bus? The beginning idea of the lie is this. David confessed to Kevin that he was just trying to trick Davon and Kevin into voting against Tyler, so that then the other side would see their cards, know that they weren't aligned with Tyler, that they were the bad guys. But Kevin found out about this. He backed out of it and voted to send Ian home wrong. And that Davon found out about it, and so she backed out as well and voted to send Ian home wrong. But that David, not only did David vote to send Tyler home, but that he laughed while he was telling them that he had actually gone ahead and voted to send Tyler out the door. So that's the beginning of the lie. They work on it a little bit more, and they come up with the justification. Why would David do this? One, because David knew it would get blood on Danny's hands. That a week ago, David had come up with this idea. He wanted to create a split vote, because if he had a split vote, then it would force Danny to have blood on her hands, because she would have to pick one or the other to head out the door. That Danny, when she sent Tyler out the door, that would get rid of Tyler. And the idea was that David is still mad about Danny putting him on the block, and that he's got a beef against Tyler going all the way back to the first of the season when he and Tyler got crosswise on the Guys Alliance talk and all that. So that's their story. Now, the other side, I think, knows better about where these votes came from than they think they do. And I'm not sure they're going to look at David and think that he is this mastermind that put this whole plan together, and Davon and Kevin just got pulled into it and all that. But they're trying. That's what they're working on. So in the backyard, Tyler and Danny are talking. Tyler is saying, look, I am very hesitant to use this veto because I don't want to be linked. I don't want to be known as the person who does backdoors. I don't want to backdoor David and have everyone know that I did that. And the other part, I don't want people thinking that this was some big plan that Memphis and I had together, that we worked on it from the very beginning and that Memphis and I are tight. I just don't want people thinking that I had anything to do with that this was all prearranged. So Tyler is sounding very reluctant about the idea of using the veto. He also says, look, I gunned for the veto. I know Memphis wanted us to throw it, but I gunned for it because I'm not 100% that he was going to backdoor David. It could have been me. And Danny says, well, now, if it was going to be you, he would have done it last week while you were on the block. And Tyler says, yeah, but as long as I got the veto, I know 100% I'm safe. So I do what I have to do. Safety comes first, right? All right. So in the HOH room, Memphis and Tyler are speaking. Tyler's talking a little bit about his conversation with Danny, and he says, man, Memphis, it is worse than we thought. And he's referencing the pressure to save Davon from the women. He says that Danny wants me to use a veto on Davon, and in exchange for her giving us some kind of a deal. He says, but here's the thing. She then talked about who she would send up later in the, next, and if it was a double and all that, and Davon's name just disappeared. She just does not see Davon as a target. It's obvious they're trying to work together and all that, and it's just worse than we think. Memphis says, well, whatever. I want Davon out over Kevin. And he says, I don't need an excuse, but Davon is more dangerous than Kevin is, and I'll tell anyone who asks about it. He doesn't vote, but he still has influence. And he says, I want Davon gone. Don't be saving Davon. So in the hammock, Davon and David are talking. A little rough conversation. David says, look, Davon, gameplay aside, just on a personal level, do you like me? And she says, I don't know you, David, because I've been spending all my time just trying to figure out why you're trying to sabotage me. It's not a good way to start a conversation, is it? She then says, I just don't get why my game has to go down so yours goes up, David. Well, of the two, David isn't really the one trying to throw the other person under the bus now, is he? But the question was asked, and when you get down to it, you've got to play your own game. If Davon has to go and David's still alive, I'm sure David's okay with that, even if he preferred that she stayed. But Davon's just taking it very personal right now that she thinks David just has it out for her and is doing all this stuff. David comes back and says, look, Bailey, when she and I were talking, she never wants to know everything about my game, every little detail. But Davon, you always do. You want to know everything, and you get suspicious if I don't tell you every tiny little thing. It just seems odd to me. I just worry about that. So at that point, the talk turns to this rumor earlier in the season. I think about the guys' alliance and such. And Davon says, look, David, back then, your stories just didn't line up. So how can I ever trust you? They just didn't line up. The key is there's a lot of mistrust between these two people. I just don't know if they're really going to be able to work together that well because they just don't have that trust. David talks a little bit, shifting gears, focus. He says, are we being targeted? Is this a societal thing? And Davon says, it's just a matter of the other side winning comps and people gravitating towards power. She mentions to David, the whole house knows that he can cry on demand, and they know you act. So David, you need to cut that out. And David says, I'm not acting. That's not me. I'm not doing it. She warns him. They all know about it. So in the key room, Nicole is saying that Christmas wanted Davon gone yesterday, but now suddenly she doesn't seem to care. I think she still cares. She's just not telling you, Nicole. Nicole thinks it has something to do with some lie that Christmas caught Nicole in yesterday. I still don't know exactly what that was. She talks to Cody right after, and Cody says, so she caught us in a lie. We don't care. And Nicole says, I guess not. All right, so in the bathroom, Danny and Davon are talking. Danny is telling Davon, you need to reach out to Christmas to emphasize the girls' alliance. Girls. And Davon says, I'm trying to figure out what's going on because I know that the votes in this last eviction isn't what put us on the block. I know that Memphis wasn't planning to send us home. The idea was no one would compete for veto. He would backdoor David, and we'd be fine. Something happened, and I don't know what's going on. Y'all are just pawns in the game between some of the committee alliances. Davon, I really think. So in the HOH room, Memphis and Kevin are speaking. Memphis is telling Kevin, the plan, Kevin, was not to keep you and Davon on the block. And I'm upset that Tyler won that veto, but Kevin, you're good. Davon's a bigger target. She's a bigger threat. Play dumb a little bit. Go ahead and campaign and everything, but you're good, my friend. And so I think Kevin kind of rolled his eyes. I'm not sure he completely believes Memphis, but it's got to make him feel a little bit better, right? In the bathroom, Kevin and Davon are talking a little bit more about this lie they're going to try to portray or talk to people about. Kevin is saying, look, this thing about David throwing him under the bus, it's probably not going to change the veto, and it's going to make me look like kind of a crapster if we do it. Kevin is saying, I'm willing to try a Hail Mary, but I'm not going to do a kamikaze. It's my backgrounds here. Here's the thing. I think Kevin may be feeling a little more comfortable after the conversation with Memphis. he may not necessarily be wanting to take a big chance if he thinks he's safe already. He may not be wanting to burn some bridges with David if he thinks he's going to be in a house, and David still will be as well. So I think he may be backing off just a little bit. Kevin's also worried the lie is going to get out to the jury house and that people are going to be upset once they start putting two and two together. Davon says, I don't care. I'm just here for survival right now. There's a news lie suggested by Kevin. He says, what if we just said that David told us a week ago the plan was to get the two of us on the block and everyone is supposed to go for veto, not go for it. And I don't know. I never heard exactly how this is going to work, but they're still trying to come up with some kind of lie, which they never used. As far as I've seen when I shut down, they still hadn't talked to Memphis or Tyler or anyone else. So but Kevin is saying, look, this how it sounds like a 2% chance this thing's going to work. Otherwise, it really could blow up in our face. And I think that may be part of Davon's strategy. Try to get Kevin to do the dirty work. If it does blow up, make Kevin a bigger target. She can sit back and try to get some of the deflection and avoid it. So that may be part of the plan as well. All right, so in the love room, Davon and Nicole are talking. Davon says Christmas is after her. Yeah, she is. She thinks part of it's because she put Christmas on slop as a have-not. A little bit. And Nicole is saying, look, Christmas wants to be your friend. Just check in with her every day. Maybe a bit of a stretch. Davon is telling Nicole that David is telling everyone it was Nicole who flipped her vote and sent Ian home. And Nicole says, I know. Danny told me he said that as well. But she also says, look, you need to talk to Memphis to try to get at David. Well, she's trying. That may not work. House guests all got alcohol, decided to chug their drinks and everything else. In the kitchen, Danny and Davon are speaking. They're trying to think of some new plan to get the veto used. Danny's saying, you're going to have to come up with some kind of lie, which they've already been working on. And Davon says, well, how about this? What if I tell Tyler that David is telling everyone that Tyler is the reason for Bailey's anxiety while she was in here? But then they decide that's a little too dirty and they're not going to do that. And so they move on. Feeds were down for about 2 hours. Don't really know why, but they were down. When we get back from the feeds in the HOH room, Memphis and Danny are talking. Memphis is saying, look, the situation worked out okay. Even though my original plan didn't work, two people who aren't in the committee alliance are on the block. I was honest with both of them, so hopefully they're not going to be too upset, whoever stays. And Danny is saying, look, if the veto isn't used, we're going to have to figure out how to get Kevin out. Yeah, I don't think that's what Memphis is shooting for, Danny. I think you're on the other side on that particular one. All right, so in the comic room, Danny, Nicole, Davon are talking. Davon is really upset. She's mad. She wants to talk to Tyler. She's been sitting on the couch waiting for him to come in at the end of the night, but he comes in with all these guys. She thinks the guys are intentionally blocking her by coming into the bathroom as a group. She's telling Davon is saying she thinks that Tyler isn't going to use the veto. And that's why all the guys are laughing so much. They seem so carefree in the bathroom. So she's getting a little upset. She leaves. Danny is saying, look, I've been trying to convince Cody, and this is Nicole, says, I've been trying to convince Cody to save Davon, but he's not budging. I just don't think he's going to do it. They both want Kevin or David gone first. They want to save Davon, but the guys are on a little bit different path here. But Danny is complaining that I've been campaigning harder for Davon than Davon has. It's a little frustrating. So final conversation. This is in a bathroom. This is Danny and Cody speaking. Danny is mad at Memphis for taking credit for the committee alliance, for everything that's happened with the committee alliance. She says he just thinks we're a bunch of idiots and just following along. Cody says, look, Memphis is predictable. He's arrogant. It's all right. We can handle it. They're talking about the double eviction. Cody is saying, no, if it's a double, I may put up Christmas. Christmas is tight with Memphis. So you can see some division, some wedges within that committee as people start choosing sides. Final little bit, and I think this is very important. Danny is saying, look, I want to save Davon, but obviously you're not going to budge. So how about this? I'll give you Davon. I will vote to send Davon home if you in turn swear to me that next week you send David home. I want David gone just as much as you want Davon gone. So I'll give you Davon this week if you work and make sure David goes home next week. Cody says, swear, done, good deal. So there you have it, guys. I truly think with all this in mind, the veto probably will not be used. Davon is the big target for now, but we shall see. Y'all have a fantastic Monday. I'll see y'all in 24 hours. Oh, and this evening, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central on the TVCo mobile app, I'll be doing Cliff Notes Live for an hour, interactive. We'll be doing questions back and forth, talking all about Big Brother, everything that's happened in the last week, some of these alliances and everything else. Again, TVCo, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. I will see y'all tonight, and I will see you in 24 hours. I'll have a great Monday. Cheers, guys. Bye. Oh, it's KD 143.